Sometimes it's the quiet moments, the stories that slip softly under your skin, that linger the longest. These films grabbed me gently and have never quite let go. Settle in, because after hearing about these unforgettable cinematic experiences, I'm guessing you'll be expanding your watch list before we're done. Let's dive in. Russian Ark. The opening moment immediately felt different. The muffled footsteps, hushed voices drifting in from just ahead, and the luxurious glide of a camera moving forward like a ghost, floating through the doors of St. Petersburg's Winter Palace. Watching Alexander Sokharov's Russian Ark was like stepping into someone else's dream, history breathing vividly, alive around me in real time. A single astonishing shot, 96 continuous minutes, carrying us gently forward through centuries and memories, blending together reality and illusion. While it didn't secure Oscar nominations, its technical and artistic legacy, especially as the first feature-length film shot in a single unbroken take, earned it widespread critical acclaim and a lasting place in cinema history. But the form, however groundbreaking, was only half of what stayed with me. The deeper pull was quieter, more human. It was that eerie feeling of slipping softly through history, observing gracefully costumed figures as utterly real moments unfolded subtly around them. Each whispered conversation or careful glance felt impossibly fragile. The past wasn't grand or distant, just softly breathing, close enough to touch. Later, learning the whole astonishing feat hinged on a single perfect take. Only the fourth try made it. 5 seconds more and the battery would have died, erasing everything, deepened my feeling of reverence. Knowing how close it came to finishing forever, 2,000 actors, orchestras, dancers added a fragile urgency to every patient, measured step. Days afterward, what lingered wasn't just Sokharov's artistic daring. It was one last empty hallway, elegant yet coldly silent. Footsteps retreating, echoes fading, memory hovering just out of reach, history revealed and concealed, beautifully fleeting. American Splendor. When the film opened, there he was, Harvey Pekar, shuffling impatiently through a Cleveland grocery store, eyebrows knitted like he was already annoyed at things he hadn't yet seen. Not a superhero, not a famous voice, just a guy moving slowly through aisles of cereal boxes and canned goods, grumbling quietly about nothing in particular. In moments like that, American Splendor hooked me, that stubborn refusal to pretend life was grander than it is. Harvey, played with anxious brilliance by Paul Giamatti, sits at a crossroads between irony and honesty, fumbling constantly with the boundary. Half documentary, half comic, half slice-of-life drama. Yes, that's 3 halves and somehow it fits. The film layers scenes like a stack of mismatched records Harvey would proudly own. And just when I started relaxing into a straightforward retelling, Harvey himself pops on screen, commenting wryly from the sidelines about the absurdity of watching someone act out your quiet, uneventful life. It shattered any standard biopic wall, and the film became something sharply original, a guy observing himself, real and invented, in the same frame. What stayed wasn't just clever format bending, it was Harvey, muttering honestly about little failures and finding small victories worth savoring, like getting mail, paying bills, or briefly feeling content. What remains clear is Harvey himself, standing quietly amid scattered comics pages, ordinary, frustrated, wonderfully real, and bravely convinced even his unremarkable life deserved its story told. The Last Boy Scout. Bruce Willis. He snarls, "Nobody likes you. Everybody hates you. You're gonna lose."
Nobody likes you. Everybody hates you. You're gonna lose.
And just like that, Tony Scott drags you headfirst into his sleazy, dazzling rabbit hole of bruised egos and cracked fists. Watching this pulp-soaked 90s noir, I felt punched, amused, and oddly connected to humanity beneath its gleeful cynicism. The Last Boy Scout pairs Willis, smirking, weary, a little broken, as Joe Hallenbeck, a private investigator who's just about done caring, teamed with Damon Wayans' fallen star athlete Jimmy Dix. Shane Black famously wrote this script in a 3-week caffeine frenzy, selling it for $1.7 million, a record-busting amount at that time. And you feel every caffeinated line, dialogue snapping like firecrackers, jokes sharp enough to draw blood. For me, though, it's Willis who stands out clearest. Weather-beaten, bitterly funny, delivering lines that deserve cinematic sainthood. Nobody else could balance weary charm and raw cynicism quite that well. It's maybe his most underrated role. Tough, wounded, defiant humor, perfectly aligned with Scott's neon-stained alleys and jittery edits that slice clean and deep. I'm still left with that image. Will is slumped beneath flickering neon, cigarette smoke drifting lazily upward, battered yet undefeated, delivering one last exhausted one-liner. It lingers, relentlessly cynical yet oddly heroic. A dark joke, whispered in a neon-lit nightmare. Ellenfo. When the music first kicked in, a lively banda blaring from cheap speakers, trumpets shimmering bright against red streamers and endless bottles of beer, I found myself smiling. Here was Mexico, vivid and loud, colors dialed so far past real they bordered on cartoon. Everything felt warm, a little tipsy, even cozy at first glance. But director Luis Estrada never lets you relax for long. Just past the fireworks, beneath laughter drowning out all else, there's suddenly the black comedy of severed heads sent as greetings, casual bribes, and the deadpan cruelty of narco culture. What stuck with me watching El Infierno was Estrada's razor-thin line between humor and horror. The cartoon brightness became too vivid, like a sugar coating on poison, and I kept feeling the rot underneath, the corruption, the futility. When Benny returned home, I wanted him to make a clean break. But the roads were quickly lined with temptation. Thick wads of pesos tucked casually into pockets. Every burst of laughter was shadowed by sudden, startling brutality. Violence that jolted me harshly awake. Learning afterward that the film's posters were banned by official theaters during Mexico's bicentennial weekend wasn't surprising. Truth can bruise. Satire can sting. Yet the crowd still rushed in. Because maybe, like me, they recognized something painfully real in Benny's raw frustration. In the absurd tragedy of striving where morality barely has space to breathe. Watch El Infierno not because it's easy, but because beneath the dark laughter is something strikingly true. About a country, a system, and the human cost behind the bright colors. Sin Nombre. It opens in motion on top of a train. Dust swirling across the lens, wind roaring. Immediately, I felt the momentum in my bones rushing forward into uncertainty. Kari Joji Fukunaga's Sin puts you right there, hanging on as the wheels push forward into a future that's both hopeful and possibly doomed. It's the story of Willie, caught between violent gang loyalty and escape, and Sarah, heading north with nothing but fragile dreams. Their worlds collide aboard that merciless train, headed toward a precarious freedom neither is certain they'll ever touch. What's striking is Fukunaga's eye, both deeply compassionate and coolly observant. The camera moves patiently, witnessing rather than intruding, lingering a moment too long, forcing us to stay in discomfort, letting tension build quietly until it erupts in sudden bursts of violence. Knowing the film was shot along active railway lines in Mexico, real trains, real danger, cast and crew riding unprotected because insurers refused coverage, heightened every risk, every quiet moment, punctuated by the distant squeal of wheels against steel. Afterward, I kept coming back to the relentless motion, the wheels turning forward into darkness and hope alike. Fukunaga leaves us right there, journeying, uncertain, carried forward beneath endless skies, painful, beautiful, unforgettable. Gamora, from some Central America's railways to Italy's shadow economy. It starts inside concrete corridors, narrow, cold, suffocating, the gray-washed walls crowding close enough to scrape shoulders. Matteo Garona's Gamora didn't immediately shock me with noise or theatrics. Instead, it quietly pressed me straight into lives already trapped, routine and relentless, orbiting crime not from choice, but from inevitability. Set in the decaying apartment blocks of Naples, the film splits across multiple lives, young kids stumbling toward brutality, tailors losing themselves promoting counterfeit elegance, drug runners numbed by habit and necessity. What stuck with me, though, wasn't just the relentless threat of violence, but how utterly ordinary it felt. At no point does Garone dramatize or romanticize. Instead, he settles us directly inside the dangerous tedium. Violence feels inevitable, routine like the heavy air of a humid afternoon. Garone lets the camera linger there, doggedly observational, indifferent, as bodies fall casually into the margins of the frame. When I learned two characters, non-actors plucked directly from those same housing projects, had been arrested in real life before the film even premiered, it startled me, but shouldn't have. Garone's version of fiction blurs fully into reality, casting shadows just as real as the gray corridors he films. Life mirroring cinema until they're inseparable. And at the end, what stayed behind was the quiet unease. Like standing inside those cramped hallways, feeling the narrow concrete walls pressing in, realizing how easily violence settles into routine. How ordinary the horror becomes. It lingers. It's something you can't quite walk away from, however hard you try. Temple Grandin, the first image that hit me was those gates slamming shut. Metal scraping metal, echoing sharply, timed exactly to the rhythm of a speeding heartbeat. Played by Claire Danes, achingly precise, stands frozen, eyes locked on the harsh angles. The swinging hinges, absorbing everything around her, like signals from another world. Mick Jackson's Temple Grandin does not guide us gently, it places us inside her experience. Without warning, letting us feel the chaos, until clarity bursts through. It's the true story of Temple, a young woman navigating autism, at a time when understanding barely existed. She searches for calm, meaning, order, from a world of disorienting sound and motion. She channels that anxious electricity, pulling me inside her rapid glances, her uneven gait, her mind building sense from pattern and repetition. Everything clicks, mechanically, rhythmically. The slam of cattle gates, timed to 120 beats per minute heartbeat. Each echo mirroring her rising and falling anxiety. What moved me most was her ability to turn that very panic into design, to invent calm from tension. Jackson keeps the camera close, tight frames, repeating images, until her way of seeing becomes ours. Each close-up builds and then clarity lands. I still picture her, standing in the squeeze machine she built for herself, the pressure grounding her, her breath finally slowing. An image of containment and relief. Mechanical, yet fully achingly human. And for one quiet moment, the world settles. Erin Brockovich. It doesn't open with a courtroom. It opens with a job interview. Bad lighting, worse attitude, and Erin Brockovich walking out pissed, heels clacking, jaw set. No law degree, no connections, just grit. She's not a lawyer, she's not polished, but she's loud, relentless, and absolutely locked in. Steven Soderbergh frames it like a Western, a lone outsider riding into town, except instead of guns, Erin shows up with legal files, righteous anger, and zero patience. This wasn't about theory, this was about people. Families getting sick, kids losing hair, water they couldn't drink or bathe in, all while Pacific Gas and Electric smiled and kept signing checks. The movie doesn't dramatize the case, it illuminates it. You feel the community building around her, one kitchen table at a time, one whisper, one medical record, one buried file. This wasn't fiction. The real Erin Brockovich actually helped bring PG&E to court, resulting in the largest direct action settlement in US history, over $330 million. No capes, no closing speech. Just a single mom in a thrift store skirt outworking everyone in the room. That waitress in the diner scene, the one who slides the menu across the table, that's the real Erin Brockovich. She didn't fade after the credits. She kept going. Still out there. Still fighting. What's up, Doc? It opens with chaos. 4 plaid suitcases, wrong bags, wrong people crashing through the streets of San Francisco. Barbara Streisand plays Judy Maxwell, a walking disaster with a grin and a plan. Ryan O'Neal is Howard Bannister, stiff, confused, completely unprepared. From the first minute, throws you into a screwball pinball machine. Motion first, explanations later. This is bringing up baby in the body of a 1970s comedy, but louder, faster, weirder. Every frame is a love letter to old Hollywood, but done with 70s edge and panic speed. Cars crash down Lombard Street, hotel lobbies explode into foot chases, Streisand never stops moving, O'Neal never quite catches up. The jokes snap, the dialogue pops like hawks loaded on speed. Watching the courthouse scene, I realized entire exchanges had been carefully stitched straight from Hawks bringing up baby, a hidden love letter to classic Hollywood, disguised in broad daylight. And somehow, it works. The camera holds just long enough for a glance, a beat, a smile, then chaos rips back in. What stays isn't the confusion, It's the rhythm. The joy of watching two opposites bounce through madness and fall into something weirdly sincere. What's Up, Doc moves fast, but it leaves behind something warm. Right away, Ordinary People put me somewhere quiet and tense, a suburban world where surfaces are flawless and nothing is allowed out of place. Robert Redford, stepping confidently behind the camera for the first time, keeps us at a careful distance. He lets us observe Conrad, Timothy Hutton, beautifully raw, a teenager tiptoeing gently through grief after losing his brother, and his parents, Beth and Calvin, tethered by politeness but quietly unraveling beneath. Redford's restraint surprised me. No easy emotional shortcuts, no dramatic flare-ups, just silence stretched thin enough that the smallest gesture felt enormous. Every polite smile wore cracks, each quiet dinner loaded with tension. The disconnect was clear. Order and precision masking trauma beneath immaculately pressed clothes and careful conversations. When Conrad finally broke down in therapy, the honesty of it landed in my chest like a physical release, a sudden rush after too many withheld breaths. Redford's debut quietly took home the Best Picture Oscar, stunning nearly everyone by dethroning Martin Scorsese's fiery masterpiece, Raging Bull. Hollywood stood shocked, but looking back, it makes sense. Redford captured truths whispered quietly but painfully, the kind easy to miss beneath louder voices. Long afterward, it's the stillness that stayed with me, the empty staircase, the neatly framed family portraits, a quiet so perfect, so carefully sustained, it could only hide deeper fractures beneath. These films stayed with me long after the credits rolled. Images, lines, quiet truths that lingered beyond storylines or accolades. I'd love to know which movies have quietly shaped you, too. Leave a comment below and subscribe if you'd like to dive deeper into films that stay beneath the surface.